everybody, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Natalia Lee and I'm the managing editor at Enchanted Ink Publishing, and today I am adding another video to my super easy writing tips series. And today we are going back to foundational skills, to one of the skills that all writers need, and that is paragraphs, understanding what a paragraph is, what its purpose is, and importantly, when to start a new paragraph. So we're going to go through all of this, and then I'm going to give you an example from a book that I love, which is Divergent by Veronica Roth. So if you are interested in learning more about the purpose of paragraphs and when to start a new paragraph in your writing, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, then stick around. Let's get started. All right, so we are going to start off with a definition of paragraph, and I pulled this definition from my favorite dictionary, Merriam-Webster. A paragraph is, quote, a subdivision of a written composition that consists of one or more sentences, deals with one point or gives the words of one speaker, and begins on a new, usually indented line. So basically you can think of a paragraph as a grouping of sentences that are all related to one idea or one purpose. All right, so we know the definition of a paragraph now, but why should we care about paragraphs and what do they actually do? The first and probably most important purpose of a paragraph is to help readers follow along with your intentions and your ideas. So because we are grouping similar sentences that have a similar purpose into one paragraph, that helps the reader follow along with your ideas and what you're trying to convey to them. And then the other thing is that paragraphs are typically indented, and that's going to simply help the reader's eyes track information on the page. So if you imagine reading a full page of text and it has no indentation and no paragraphs, it's going to be harder to follow along not only with the author's ideas, but it's going to be easier to get lost on the page. If you glance away for a moment and you look back, it's going to be hard to find where you were on that page, and the indentation of paragraphs helps the eye follow along. So that's important as well. Now, how do you know when you should start a new paragraph? So this section is going to be relevant, especially to fiction writers, but nonfiction writers can utilize this as well. So the number one time you're going to start a new paragraph is when you are introducing a new idea. And when we look at an example in a little bit, I think that'll help you recognize what new ideas are and when we might need one. So just keep that in mind. You will want to start a new paragraph when you introduce a new idea. And then especially if you are writing fiction and you have character dialogue and characters speaking to one another, you're going to want to start a new paragraph when a new character is speaking. So when we are talking about dialogue, there is an additional purpose for paragraphs, and that is helping to clue readers in on when a new person is joining the conversation. I have talked often about dialogue tags on this channel, and sometimes when you don't want to overdo the dialogue tags, he said, she said, back and forth, starting a new paragraph is going to clue the reader in on, okay, somebody new is talking here. However, we can also have new paragraphs within dialogue when one character has a lot to say. So instead of taking up a huge, half page, for example, of dialogue in one paragraph from one character, we can break that dialogue into separate paragraphs that all kind of have their own ideas. Now, something to keep in mind here, if you are writing a large chunk of dialogue and breaking it up into different paragraphs, is that every paragraph of dialogue is going to have opening quotes, but we're only going to put closing quotes on the final paragraph of dialogue. So again, that's going to be another clue to the reader that one character is saying all of that. And if you want some more tips for dialogue and dialogue tags, dialogue punctuation, I have a few videos linked down below that you'll find really helpful. Now, another time, especially in fiction, when you might want to start a new paragraph is when a chunk of time has passed. Now, depending on how much time has passed, you might also want to utilize a minor scene break or a major scene break. That's what I call them. Some people might also call them scene breaks and section breaks, but essentially the way I approach it is if a short amount of time has passed, especially if a short amount of time is passing and your characters are still in the same location, then we can use a minor scene break. Sometimes this will be 1 pound sign or 1 asterisk, or even just additional paragraph spacing, and then no indentation on the following paragraph. That could be a minor, or you might want to utilize a major if a large chunk of time is passing, or if your characters are in 2 separate locations and time has passed in which they traveled to a new location. You might want to use a major scene break, and that's typically going to be three asterisks or 3 pound signs. So that is another time when we're going to utilize a new paragraph, is when a chunk of time is passing in your story. Okay, so we have now discussed what a paragraph is, why we use paragraphs, and some situations in which you might want to start a new paragraph. Let's go ahead and look at an example. Again, this is an excerpt from Divergent by Veronica Roth. We're going to take a look at that and see how she broke her writing, this very short scene, into different paragraphs and discuss their intentions. Okay, so in this excerpt from Divergent by Veronica Roth, we are looking at 6 paragraphs. And I just pulled this little excerpt off of Amazon in their little like look inside feature. So we have, like I said, 6 paragraphs here. I have enclosed each paragraph in a teal box just to give you a very easy visual representation of these paragraphs. And you'll also see that they are all indented except for the first paragraph. So when you have the first paragraph of a new chapter or the first paragraph after a minor or major scene break, we typically are not going to be indenting that. One, it helps the reader know when they are starting, obviously, a new chapter or minor or major scene, but also in terms of the way that the eye tracks the page. You don't need that indentation of the first paragraph because there's already going to be space around it that clues the reader in on the fact that we are starting something new. So you'll see that in this example, that first paragraph is not indented, but the 5 after it are. Now, we have a few different purposes for these paragraphs here. So the first is simply an introduction. Now, because I don't have the book in front of me, I don't know if this is a new chapter or if this scene is following a scene break. But the fact that we have no indentation of that first paragraph tells me very clearly that we are starting a new scene. So this first paragraph is simply an introduction. It's kind of helping set the scene that we're stepping into. Now, the following paragraph, Caleb and I climb the stairs, and at the top, when we divide to go to our separate bedrooms, he stops me with a hand on my shoulder. So here, this is simply an action paragraph. And following that, we have dialogue from Caleb. So you can see that he has a couple different lines of dialogue here, but it's all combined into one paragraph because he is the only speaker in this paragraph. That's followed up by reflection from our main character, moving into a paragraph of her dialogue. So it's okay that we have a little bit of action and dialogue combined in paragraphs. It's just important to keep in mind that, and this is something I can talk about in a different video, in each paragraph, we typically only want action and dialogue by one character. So you don't want a line of dialogue, for example, spoken by Caleb, followed up with an action beat by our other character, Beatrice. So we want to make sure, like here in the third paragraph in this example, it is Caleb's dialogue and his actions. And that is just helping to combine ideas to help your reader more clearly follow along with the scene and what's happening here. So moving back to the 5th paragraph, this is Beatrice's dialogue, and then that's followed up by a new paragraph that has Caleb's action beat, he smiles, and his dialogue. Don't they though? So this is a really good example of grouping paragraphs, grouping our sentences into paragraphs that all have a similar purpose or idea, whether that's an intro, action, dialogue, inner reflection, or inner thought, etc. And there are lots of different purposes for paragraphs. These are not the only reasons that you would group ideas and sentences into paragraphs, but I think it's a really good example and a good place to start. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for this kind of foundational video. I hope you learned more about paragraphs, why we utilize paragraphs, and what their purpose is. If you are looking for an editor, a formatter, or a book cover designer, please come check us out at enchantedinkpublishing.com. We would absolutely love to work with you. We are booking into this summer and fall, kind of depending on what service you're looking for. If you are interested in a line edit, which would absolutely help you with breaking your writing into distinct paragraphs, we are currently booking into 2024. So make sure to reach out to us sooner rather than later if you want to get on our editing, cover design, or formatting calendars. We would absolutely love to work with you. You can let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed this video, if you have any follow-up questions regarding paragraphs, or if you have any requests for other videos within this series of super easy writing tips. I would love to do more kind of foundation-based videos. While I love discussing kind of the intricacies and detail work that goes into writing and editing, I also know that we all need to have this kind of base level of skill when it comes to writing, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, a memoir, a trilogy, an epic fantasy, whatever it is you're working on. So again, please let me know down below if you have any questions or requests for other videos, and I would be happy to add those to my current running list of videos that I want to film. Again, you can come visit us at enchantedinkpublishing.com if you'd like to work with us, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!